Keith Tebow from FRCMedia. Thank you for joining us today. We've talked a lot over the past 7-8 months about the impacts of COVID, but one of the industries, if you will, that was actually looking to have a little bit of a comeback is our performing arts industry. And unfortunately, with the city of Fall River seeing an uptick in cases and falling into the red level of infection across the Commonwealth, some of those plans have had to been scaled back. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of the performing arts activity in Fall River and how they're handling things. I'm pleased to be joined right now by Patrick Norton from the Narrow Center of the Performing Arts. Patrick, how are you? Thanks for joining me.
I'm very well, Keith. How are you doing today?
I am doing well. Thank you for joining us. So, back in March, we talked a little bit before we got started. You have to, at the Narrows, you have to set up your schedule well beforehand, months and months in advance. Tell us a little bit about, how COVID initially just kind of like punched you in the gut and made you rethink things. And we'll get into some specifics in a moment.
Yeah, well, the last show that we did was March 13th. And, we thought we might be closed for a month or a couple of months. And within 1 week after that, before we hit March 21st, we had basically canceled our entire schedule for 6 months or 7 months looking forward. So a year of planning to get to a point, and then we canceled everything. And then, like we were talking earlier, we've moved shows 2 or 3 times. Stuff that we thought was going to happen in October was in February. And now, with the bad news that we're hearing, the winter schedule is moving to late spring. So, not just the Narrows, but all these performing arts venues and music venues, we were the first to close as an industry because of COVID. And unfortunately, because we're in the crowd business, we'll be one of the last to reopen. So it's going to be a long haul. The Narrows is going to be okay. I can say that. Luckily, we've been doing this a long time. We're in our 20th year now. So
Wow.
we saved our money and made some good business decisions. I mean, we had to lay off our entire staff to get to this point, but we're going to survive this, but it's going to be a long road back.
I want to get to even just a little over a month or so ago when the governor announced that, when things were looking decent in the Commonwealth in terms of the COVID numbers, he was saying, okay, communities that are in the green or in the yellow could advance to phase 3, step 2, which would have allowed venues like yourself to allow people back in to enjoy some of those musical performances. When you got that news, I know you talked about, it was reported that you were looking to get back right away to trying to get some events in person at the Narrows, and then everything changed. So go through that roller coaster ride if you could.
Yeah, we were surprised as anybody when we heard Governor Baker say that they were moving into that, like you say, phase 3, step 2. And I think the governor and the state in general has done a great job trying to do the best they can in very, very uncertain times and with a lot of guesswork. So we were patient. We got the word. We ended up scheduling some shows. We've been doing these Friday night live streams every Friday night since the middle of May. So we had a schedule in place. So for actually 2 nights, we had 2 shows where we had, small audience, 25 the first night and 100 the second time. And, even though we only had those 2, it was nice to get people in. We had a good time, and it allowed us to kind of work our way into, our COVID plans with our social distancing, our safe seating, and all the other sanitization and different protocols that'll be the world that we're moving into.
So you talk about how you've done these virtual performances. Have they been done at the Narrows itself? So you're using the stage, just that with no in-person audience. Is that how it's been working?
That's how we've been doing it. Yeah. We've got a great stage and a nice lighting rig and a beautiful sound system at the Narrows, so we can safely do under all the guidelines. We've only got a handful of people in there to do this. Some 3 cameramen and myself and the band, and yeah. we learned, we've gotten better at it. We're not experts, but we think our live streams are as good as anybody's out there, especially on the kind of level that we're working with. They're on YouTube. I think we've done 29 of them. We've done about 42 by the end of the year. So, and they've been somewhat financially successful. We do a donation tip jar kind of thing where we split the money 50-50. And, it's not what we were making before, but it's something, and it keeps us active. And a lot of people are dying for live music. I mean, I'm a live music junkie myself, and man, I miss it dearly.
Yeah. So, I want to talk a little bit about what's coming up for people, in Fall River and the surrounding area who may want to, have the opportunity to see what would normally happen at the Narrows. Some people may not know that you've been doing these for 29 plus weeks, but in terms of making that shift, one of the things that I've talked a lot about with people I've interviewed since March is the fact that the need to adapt, the need to be nimble, and how important was it? And I guess it's one of those survival tactics, right, Patrick, where, you have to adapt or you won't survive, right?
Correct. And we're nimble, volunteer driven from the get-go. The Narrows was always all about that. Myself and Deb Charlebois, she created a virtual art gallery on Fall River Feast. And we've got some other virtual art galleries that are going to start happening over the next couple of weeks and months. And we know that it's going to be a while. And even when they do allow us to open up again, it's going to be at limited capacity, and some people won't feel safe to come out to shows. So we still want to bring art and culture into people's living rooms because it's important. I think, we're moving into this dark corner of the wintertime, and it's going to be lonely out there. And we need to find ways that we can connect people to things that they really love in a fashion they may not be, the way they used to receive these services, but things are changing all the time. And let me just say this, we're going through a lousy time. We will survive this thing. We will gather with people again. We will see live music. So it's going on way longer than we wanted it to, but I don't want people to think that it's never coming back, because that's not the case.
Yeah. And I know that, you mentioned some important points that, when people think of the Narrows, they think of the musical performances, which was actually, the bread and butter, how things got started. But, you've got the art gallery now, and you've got the festival, the Spindle City Fest that you've been running for a few years now, and that's been impacted as well. Any way to shift the fest into a remote atmosphere at all?
Well, we would, whether if we're probably going to move something outside for the springtime. I mean, I think that's what the plan is, because we're not convinced that indoors will work at that point. I do want to mention we opened up a yoga room during the pandemic. We were planning on doing this, so we now offer yoga classes Wednesdays at 10 a.m. and Saturdays at 9 a.m. There's my plug. But that's another offering, and that's something that we'll start to continue to build on. We can do that safely under the governor's regulations.
Right, there's plenty of room in that space. I saw a photo on the website. There seems to be plenty of room in that space to accommodate a yoga class. So, for people who may be interested in getting their local music fix, even though remotely, we're in the first week of November. Talk about some of the events coming up, and I want to focus on one that's happening this Sunday. Actually, let's kind of start with it, even though there's another event on Friday that you have as part of your Friday events. But there's going to be, I believe it's the 5th annual tribute to Michael Troy that goes toward supporting Durfee High School music.
That's correct. They have raised quietly $25,000, $5,000 a year. Actually, more than that. They've already raised $25,000. So they've raised $25,000 over the first 4 years, and that money is going directly to Durfee High School, musical equipment, gear, etc. And Michael Troy was a brilliant singer-songwriter from the Fall River area. He was a national artist. He was a guy who captured Fall River's Mills Hills. He was a fisherman. He was a rough and tumble sort of guy, but he was a poet laureate, as I may say. And he left. He was a longtime Narrows guy, opened up a lot of great shows, headlined some great shows. Again, played all across the country, was a Kerrville Folk Festival songwriting champ, on and on and on. And his friends have put together this benefit with his family. And what a great way Michael to honor Michael by, one, letting people in Fall River know that this guy, Michael Troy, wrote all this great music, but, to inspire young kids and to put money in kids' pockets, that can be a barrier for a lot of kids. They don't have the money to buy a musical instrument. This money that Michael Troy's foundation raises buys musical instruments for kids. I mean, that's a big deal. So we're very, very proud of that event. That starts at 1:00 on Sunday, and that'll be donations through Venmo and PayPal. That'll be on the screen during the show. And all that money, none of the money goes to the Narrows or the musicians. 100% of all the proceeds go directly to the Michael Troy Foundation. And again, we, normally I think there's 9 performers over about a 2-hour period. We used to get 200 or 300 people to come to the Narrows to come to the show. That's not going to happen this year, but we're nimble and everyone wants to do it. So hopefully people can watch that show and be generous and support music locally. Cause like I said, all that money goes to the kids at Durfee.
Yeah. What are some of the other performances happening virtually? You said on the Fridays coming up over the next few weeks.
We've got jazz this weekend with Greg Abate. Next week we have Colby James. He's from Bristol. And then on the day after Thanksgiving, we have our good friends Roomful of Blues. So that'll be a fun virtual affair. And we'll be adding a bunch of stuff as we're 6 or 7 weeks out. We'll be adding some more shows. But, even when we return, like as I said, to somewhat normal conditions, we'll continue to live stream our shows. That's something that we've become good at. And, I just think it's just another part of the business, as we say. The music business continues to change. And I think live streaming and virtual concerts, I think will be a part of the mix moving forward.
Yeah. All right. Patrick Norton from the Narrows Centers for the Art. Thank you for joining us today. Continued success in the virtual world, and we'll talk again soon and catch up. Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Have a good day. Thanks.
All right. And thank you all for watching us here today on FRC Media. Take care.